Hey, my little sinners and saints. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Tonight, we're going to be doing a profile on Ted Bundy, Edmund Kemper, Eric Rudolph, Charles Manson, Son of Sam, Timothy McVeigh, the Green River Killer, Ed Gein, the Zodiac Killer, H. Holmes, Rodney Alcala, Richard Ramirez, Jack the Ripper, Israel Keys, Aline Wuornos, BT Killer, BTK Killer. Now, I'll go ahead and say we probably won't get through all of these. Um, one, because I already took my medicine, but two, um, there's just a lot of them. So we're going to start out looking at Canva. Let me get you back here so I can share my screen. Okay, first we're going to be looking at, there's the introduction. See my scary lady over here? First, we're going to look at Ted Bundy. Now, the first thing I want to do is read something that I found to kind of give you a little background of serial killers. And I talked to my chair today, which when you're doing your dissertation, you have a chair and a second committee, and then the board and all these people. But the chair is the one I interact with the complete time. And he said that I'm not writing a book, that I'm only writing a dissertation, so I need to narrow down my thing. So I bought his book, and it should be here tonight. Um, yes, I said tonight. Amazon apparently delivers at night, and so hopefully I'll get it and get a more narrow topic. Right now I'm looking at Eileen Wuornos uh, and women serial killers. Thought maybe that would narrow it down some, but I'll know better when I get done reading the 500 pages. But psychopathy is characterized by diagnosis features such as superficial charm, high intelligence, poor judgment, and the failure to learn experience. Pathological egocentricity, and we'll look at that word here in a minute, and incapacity for love, lack of remorse or shame, impulsivity, grandiose sense of self-worth, pathological lying. You would think that since I'm doing forensic psychology that I could say that word, but it just eludes me. Pathological lying, manipulative behavior, poor self-control, promiscuous, promiscuous, promis, promiscuous. You know what I'm saying? Sexual behavior, juvenile delinquency, and criminal versatility, among others. Of this criteria, the image of a psychopath is that of a cold, heartless, inhuman being. But do all psychopaths show a complete lack of normal emotion capacities and empathy? Some of the sources of their psychopath is sadness. I'm just going to run down through these real quick. Violent psychopaths, ultimately, they reach the point where there's no return, where they feel they have cut through the last thin connection with the normal world. There's risk factors, hidden suffering, loneliness, and lack of self esteem are risk factors for violent criminal behavior in psychopaths. Emotional pain and violence, social isolation, loneliness, and associated emotional pain in psychopaths may precede violent criminal acts. Self destruction, and then we have the conclusion, and egocentric versus narcissistic. Some of the similarities are focus on all perception and opinion, lack of empathy, inability to recognize the needs of others, excessive thoughts on how they might view them, decision making around the needs of self. In addition to these traits, however, narcissistic people demonstrate excessive need for recognition and admiration, They view themselves extraordinary, worthy, and important. They have a sense of entitlement. They manipulate others to get what they want. They're arrogant and pretentious behaviors, preoccupied with fantasies and unlimited success, power, or beauty. Let me see. Struggles, lack the ability to. They lack the struggle. They struggle and the lack the ability to empathize or imagine someone's perspectives other than their own. The negative impacts um, on the ego symptoms, probably saying that wrong as hell, is trust, closeness, intimacy, emotional decision making, collaboration, teamwork. They have low self worth, self doubt, confusion, sadness, anger, resentment, detachment. Let's go on to the other one. I don't want to spend all the time. And then we got the McDonald triad predict serial killers. We're going to look at that here in a little while. We're going to look at Ted Bundy right now. Let me click it away. We're going to start with childhood. Okay, he says that his childhood was one that was wonderful. Um, hey, Black Widow, go check out Black Widow's channel, sub up, and watch her sleep streams. Oh my lord. I was watching one here before I started and I about fell asleep. I'm like, I gotta turn this off for a second. But I'm telling you right now, go sub up to Black Widow. You will not be disappointed. Black Widow, if you won't drop your. Here, I will. Drop your link in the chat. You can if you want to. Dun, dun, dun. Give me 1 second. Now remember, this is not a channel where you're going to go over and there's going to be drama and stuff. So leave the drama out. There's none there. There's none here. If you come in with drama, then you will be timed out, and if you keep on, then you will be blocked. But we got Ted Bundy here, and we're going to start with his childhood. And he says that his childhood was hunky dory. It was wonderful. It couldn't be better. He had great relationships with everybody. But let's find out what the truth is. There are different versions of how Ted Bundy learned the truth about his mother. His mother was known as his sister for many years of his life, and then he found out that that was his mother versus his sister, and he resented his grandmother and grandfather that raised him because his grandmother, I've got it here somewhere, um, she was a hard ass, and his she I think was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he there's a red flag. Um, and the grandfather had this enormous temper, which he would take out on friends, family, animals, and of course Ted. Says a friend remembered trying to reassure Bundy that his illegitimacy didn't matter, but a bitter Bundy couldn't be consoled, telling him, "Well, it's not that you're a bastard." He didn't fit in with his classmates. He had violent tendency, and he began to break the law at a young age. He shoplifted ski equipment forge lift tickets, become a peeping Tom, and let me read you my notes that I took here. Kind of went off of that page though. So Ted Bundy stated that he had an uneventful childhood, but a closer look shows he was a social awkward child who sometimes crossed the lines of propriety, morality, and legality. These words. One theory is that he began his spree as soon as he was an adolescent, that he had started doing small crimes, like I said, the shoplifting ski equipment, things like that. So let's go to the grand Wikipedia. Okay, Wikipedia is a terrible source, but it does have a lot of information. You got to take it for what it's worth. So, it's his full name is Theodore Robert Bundy. He was born November 24th, 1946. He died January 24th, 1989 by I think it was lethal injection. We'll get to that. Was an American serial killer who kidnapped, raped, and murdered dozens of young women and girls during the 1970s. After more than a decade of denials, he confessed to 30 murders. The total of victims is likely to be higher. Bundy's modus operandi typically consisted of stimulating, having a physical impairment to convince his target that he was in need of assistance, or duping her into believing that he was an authority figure. I think at one point he even posed as a cop. Don't hold me to that. I don't know. But I'm trying to keep up with chat as it goes. So if I don't get back to you, I'll get to you in a minute. But he would lure the victim into a vehicle that he had parked in more of a secluded area, at which point he would bludgeon her unconscious, then restrain her with handcuffs before driving the victim to a remote area and to be sexually assaulted and killed. Bundy frequently revisited the bodies of those abducted, grooming and performing sexual acts on the corpses until decomposition. God, it showed a picture. I think that's a pig. And destruction by wild animals made further interactions impossible. Um, I may even change my dissertation up to necrophilia because, oddly enough, I have an interest in that, and that just made me think about it. It's like after a few days of, after a day, there's bugs on the body, and for someone to go back and have sexual intercourse with any part of the body, like what's going through their mind. I mean, and then they go back to it until it's no longer usable, and it's just, oh my god, there's so many things that run through my head. It makes me just cringe. I don't know what to say. Um, he decapitated at least 12 of his victims, keeping their severed head as mementos in his apartment. On few occasions, Bundy broke into homes after night and bludgeoned, maimed, strangled, or sexually assaulted his victims in their sleep. In 1975, he was arrested and jailed in Utah for aggravated kidnapping and attempted criminal assault. He began. He then began a suspect in the progressive. He then became a suspect in a progressively longer list of unsolved homicides in the states. He actually came to Idaho. Idaho. He's the hoe. But anyway, he came to Idaho, Washington, Seattle, everywhere. Facing murder charges in Colorado. That wasn't a complete sentence there. Oh, it's a comma. Facing, it's been a long day. Facing murder charges in Colorado, Bundy engineered two dramatic escapes and committed further assaults in Florida. Okay, one of his escapes, He actually jumps out of like a two-story glass window, and he was on the run for a while. Killed two people, I do believe. It could have been three, while he was on the run from the law after he escaped out of the courtroom. Um, this included three murders before being recaptured in 1978. For the Florida homicides, he received three death sentences in two trials and was executed by the electric chair. Oh my. At Florida State Prison on January. Oh yeah, they shaved his head. Um, Squirrel. At Florida State Prison on January 24th, 1989. His early life. Let's look at this through Wikipedia standards. Ted Bundy was born Theodore Robert Coel, 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 on November 24th, 1946, to Eleanor Louise Coel. 1924 to 2012 is when she was born to when she died, at the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Burlington, Vermont. His biological father's identity has never been confirmed. His original birth certificate apparently assigns paternity to a salesman in the United States Air Force. He's a veteran named Lloyd Marshall, though a copy of it listed his father as unknown. Louise, which was his actual mother, claimed that she met the war veteran named Jack Worthington, who abandoned her soon after she became pregnant. I don't know why those names changed. That's why I said you got to take Wikipedia how it comes. Census records reveal that several men by the name of John Worthington and Lloyd Marshall lived near Louise when Bundy was conceived. Some of the family members expressed suspicions that Bundy was sired by Louise's own father. Yes, she was raped by her own father. Um, Bundy either knew about this or he witnessed this. However, in 2020 documentary Crazy, Not Insane, psychiatrist Dorothy Lewis claimed that she received a sample of Bundy's blood, and the DNA test had confirmed that he was not the product of incest. For 3 years of Bundy's life, he lived in Roxborough neighborhood of Philadelphia, where his maternal grandparents, Samuel Corll, it gives their death dates and when they were born, and Eleanor Longstreet. The couple raised him as their own son to avoid social stigma that accompanied a birth outside of wedlock at that time. Family and friends, and even young Ted, were told that his grandparents were his parents and that his mother was his older sister. Bundy eventually discovered the truth about his family. Although his recollections of circumstances varied, he told a girlfriend that a cousin showed him a copy of his birth certificate after calling him a bastard. But he told biographers Stephen and Hugh that he had found the birth certificate himself. Biographer and true crime writer Ann Rule, who knew Bundy personally, wrote that he did not find out about the true percentage until 1969, and that's when he located his real birth certificate in Vermont. He expressed long resentment towards his mother for not telling him about his real father, and of course, there's got to be something there where he hated her. I mean, but I just wonder if, because they always say that the person kills the person that they hate, but they're protective over that person. So it makes me wonder what his mother looked like. Let's look up Ted Bundy's mother. Let's see what she looked like. Here, let me go here. I can't make up my mind. I'm telling you, got so much information and I want to get everything out, and I've got everything scattered. I've got like 30 tabs open on one thing, then I got another thing open where my school stuff is, and then they tell me I got to change stuff, and I'm like, oh my God. Okay, let's see here. Okay, this is a picture of her, obviously older in life, but you can see that when she was young, she had dark hair, and it wasn't necessarily straight, which was his type, but it was uh, it was dark, so that might have something to do with it. Okay, let's go back here to Wikipedia. Bundy varied in his recollections of Tacoma in later years. Um, I ain't even gonna lie, don't know how to say those names, but two people had described him roaming his neighborhood, picking through trash barrels in search of pictures of naked women. To the attorney and author Polly Nelson, he said that he pursued detective magazines. I'll give you a little bit of information. When I grew up, my cousin received, I'm not going to say which one, obviously, but received these detective magazines. And the women were always bound and tied up. And even as a kid, I'm like, that's kind of odd. And he turned out to be a cop. Now he's a detective. But it just, it makes me wonder if that type of magazine can put, these ideas into men's head or women's head. But I just thought that was odd. And every time I read that, I always think of that. Pursued detective magazine and crime novels for stories that involved sexual violence, particularly when the stories were illustrated with a picture of dead or maimed women. In a letter to rule, however, he asserted that he never ever read fact detective magazines and shuddered at the thought that anybody would. Later on, he tells the preacher guy, I forget what his name is, but he tells him he started out with sexual magazines, and then it escalated because that didn't do it anymore, and it had to get deeper and deeper until he was in this dark place and he couldn't get out. And it was kind of like his last grab at not freedom, but not getting killed. But I just find that I think that he did look at those magazines. He once told Michael that he would consume large quantities of alcohol and canvass the community late at night in search of undraped windows where he could observe women undressing or whatever else he could see. Psychologist Al claimed that Bundy, that was good. That's good. Started fantasizing about women he saw while peeping through windows. He was a peeping Tom, and elsewhere, and mimicking the accents of some politicians he listened to on the radio. In essence, he was fantasizing about someone else, someone important. I wonder who that was. I wonder if he was thinking about his mother. It's kind of, I don't know. Just makes me wonder. There's so much that makes me wonder about these people. Some people describe him as a mean spirited kid. He engaged in animal cruelty. He would steal clothes off clotheslines and douse them in lighter fluid. Um, he would terrorize the neighborhood. I'm just looking through to see if we find bedwetting. So we have the triad. In the university years after graduating from high school in 1965, Bundy attended the Univers- University of Puget Sound (UPS) for 1 year for transferring into the University of Washington to study Chinese. In 1967, he became romantically involved with a University of Washington classmate, Diane Edwards. This is the one that definitely fits the victims that he killed. She had the long, dark, straight hair. Um, Mostly, Bundy later described Edwards as the only woman that he ever really loved. In early 1968, Bundy dropped out of college and worked a series of minimum wage jobs. He volunteered at the Seattle office of Nelson Rockefeller presidential campaign, um, became an author, driver, and bodyguard. Arthur Fletcher, which was the lieutenant, he campaigned for lieutenant governor of Washington State, is who the Arthur Fletcher is. Edwards graduated um, 1968, left Washington for San Francisco. Bundy visited her later that years after he learned in scholarship to study Chinese at the Stanford University that summer. Let me see what this is. In case it's somebody telling me something's messed up. Sorry. Let's get to the killings. His first murders. There is no census as when or where Bundy began killing women. He told different stories and to different people and refused to divulge the specifics of his earliest crimes, and even as he confessed in graphic detail to dozens of later murders in days preceding his execution. Bundy told Nelson that he attempted his first kidnapping in Ocean City, New Jersey in 1969, but did not kill anyone until sometime in 1971 in Seattle. He told his psychiatrist, Art Norman, that he killed two women in Atlantic City while visiting family in Philadelphia in 1969. Bundy hinted to homicide detective Robert Kemple that he had committed murder in Seattle in 1972 and another murder in 1973 that involved a hitchhiker, and that was near Tumwater. But he refused to elaborate. Rule and Kemple both believed that he may have started killing as a teenager. I believe that too. I think that he had got someone probably his age that he knew that he could con into something and he could overtake them. But that's theory, that's not fact. Bundy's earliest documentation of homicides was committed in 1974 when he was 27. By his own admissions, he had then mastered the necessary skills. So he was just wonderful. He started out with master skills on how to kill people. That seems odd to me. In the era before DNA profiling to leave minimum incriminating forensic evidence at crime scenes. Shortly after midnight, this was Washington, Oregon. Shortly after midnight on January 4th, 1974, around the time that he terminated his relationship with Edwards, Bundy entered a basement apartment of 18-year-old Karen Sparks, um, a dancer and student at University of Washington in Seattle University District. After bludgeoning Sparks with a metal rod from her bed frame, he sexually assaulted her with the same rod, causing external and internal injuries and rupturing her bladder. Sparks remained unconscious in the hospital for 10 days, and although she survived, she was left permanently brain damaged, with significant loss to her vision and hearing. In the early morning hours of February 1st, Bundy broke into a basement apartment room of 21-year-old Lindy Healy of University of Washington undergraduate, who broadcasts the morning radio weather sports for skiers. That's a good connection there. He liked to ski, so that might be how he met her. He beat her unconscious, dressed her in blue jeans and a white blouse and boots, and carried her away. He later stated that he drove Healy to a secluded area where he raped and murdered her before dumping her body. This might be a body that he went back to. Theory, not fact. During the first half of 1974, female college students disappeared at the rate of about one per month. On March 12th, Donna Manson, 19-year-old student at Evergreen State College in Olympia, 60 miles southwest of Seattle, left her dormitory to attend a jazz concert on campus but never arrived. Bundy claimed that he buried Manson's skull in his girlfriend's fireplace, down to the last ash, in a fit of paranoia and cleanliness. Then, on April 17th, 18-year-old Susan Rancourt disappeared while on her way to the dorm room after an evening of advisory meetings at Central Washington State College in Lanesburg, 110 miles away from Seattle, southeast of Seattle. Two females at Central Washington that were students later came forward to report encounters, one on the night of Rancourt's disappearance and 3 nights earlier, with a man wearing a sling who was asking for somebody to help him load his books into a brown or tan Volkswagen Beetle. And we can go on with the whole, hey, Miss Highly Quality. It's good to see you. Thank you for coming in. I don't check messages real easily, so I apologize for not getting to you sooner. Um, I always know Black West got my back, but we're going through some of Ted Bundy's actions right now, and I'm trying to narrow it down because most of it's going to repeat itself. But he committed 30 homicides. It's what he admitted to. So let's take a look at Ted Bundy. Okay, he had a childhood he lied about, for one. And he said that he had a good childhood, and he didn't. And his grandmother was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and his grandfather had a bad temper, like more than just people getting mad. And he was cruel to animals. So Ted Bundy's seeing all this. He's being raised by these people, and then he finds out that his mother is not his sister, and so we have that aspect of it too. And he was interested in fires. He was interested in torturing animals, and it's not published anywhere that I found, but I'd say that he probably was a bedwetter too. I know that that's just three things to go off of, but in general, it's just the way it is. That's the main things to focus on. The question is, mine, before we start in on Edmund Kemper, is that, oh, and he was also jealous of his mother's relationship with um, Johnny Bundy, which would become his stepfather. He was jealous of his mother's new relationship, and he would have public tantrums and wetting his pants in public. Ted and Joanne's relationship was tense when Bundy was very materialistic and his parents could not afford a lot. He was challenged by his father's intellect. He would provoke his father sometimes until his father would strike out. I don't know what strike out actually means, but I would assume that it's physical. But let's look at, I've got some diagnoses here. Ted Bundy was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. I think that if these people were evaluated today, there would be a lot more disorders diagnosed. Uh, I feel like that's just one generalization because it's got Charles Manson under it, John Wayne Gacy, Timothy McVeigh, and then for schizophrenia, it's David Berkowitz, Ed Gein, borderline personalities. They're psychopaths. They're all psychopaths or sociopaths. And I feel like there would be more diagnosis if these people were evaluated today. Ted Bundy's IQ was 136. Most serial killers average 94.5. And this got me interested, and I did take an IQ test, and I had to pay for it. And my IQ is 104. Disappointed. I thought it was higher, but here we are at 104. Um, at least it's not 74, but there we go. But let's go ahead and look at Edmund Kemper. Who was Edmund Kemper? Edmund Kemper, at the age of 15, killed both of his grandparents to see what it felt like. Upon release, let's go back here. I like to make sure I get all details in. Um, I know he was so smart that he could have been a lawyer. Even the judge, when he sentenced him, told him that he would have been just honored to have him, be in the courtroom as a lawyer. And but yet he chose a different path. Is what the judge said to him, and it just makes me wonder. I do believe there's a line between genius and insane, and I think sometimes people cross over it. And I don't know what makes someone like that become a serial killer, though. It looks to me if you had such a high IQ that you would be more interested in books and what's going on, and everything, with school and getting jobs, all this stuff, but they don't. Um, Edmund Kemper, he killed his grandparents to see what it felt like. That's true, but he killed his grandmother because the grandfather was in World War II as like a gunny, air gunny, whatever you call it, where they fight in the air. I'm not sure exactly what you call that. It's Air Force. Um, but he was on the front lines, and he described being married to her as being in war on the front lines. And, she was just horrific, to everybody. And so he killed her, but then he killed his grandpa because he said that he didn't want his grandpa living without his grandmother. So it wasn't just that he killed them to see what it felt like, but I did want to throw that in there, and I do that during reading. If I know something that's not being said, then I try to throw it in there. But he killed his grandparents at the age of 15 to see what it felt like. Upon release, he drifted picking up and releasing female hitchhikers, but soon he stopped letting them go, killing 6 young women in Santa Cruz, California, in the areas of 1970s to 1973. He killed his mother and her friend before turning himself in. Okay, he killed six co-eds. He killed his grandparents. That was sealed. I think if that hadn't been sealed, then maybe this would have turned out different. I think hiding the fact that somebody killed two people at the age of 15 is not exactly a great idea. Um, but he turned himself in after killing his mother. We'll go into that a little bit more. And you heard me say on the last video, I think that if he would have killed his mother first, then he wouldn't have killed anybody else. I'm not saying he wouldn't have killed his grandparents because I think he really did hate his grandmother. Kemper was born on December 18th, Sagittarius, 1948, in Burbank, California. I know that because I'm a Sagittarius. The middle of E. and Clarnell Kemper. the middle child. After his parents' divorce in 1957, he moved in with his mother and two sisters in Montana. Kemper had a difficult relationship with his alcoholic mother. She was just as bad as her mother, as she was very critical on him and blamed him for all her problems. When he was 10 years old, she forced him to live in the basement away from the sisters, whom she feared that he might harm in some way. This goes on in other publications that I've seen, that I'm going to close out Canvas because it just shows the serial killers. But he, um, she was afraid he was going to molest them, is what she was afraid of. So let me share a picture of Kemper in case you don't know what Kemper looks like. I know you do, Black Widow. That's Kemper. I got my pants from Flamingo today. But he was a big man. Signs of trouble began to emerge in an early age. Kemper had dark fantasy life, sometimes dreamed about killing his mother. He cut off the heads of his sister's dolls and coerced them into playing a game which he called the gas chamber, in which he would blindfold them, have them blindfold him, and lead him to the chair where he would pretend to writhe in agony until he died. His first victims were his family's cats. At 10, he buried one of them alive, and then the second he slaughtered with a knife. And he put the cat's head, the one he buried alive, he put the cat's head onto a stick and carried it around. He went to live with his father for a time, but ended up back with his mother, who decided to send the troubled teenager to live with his perennial grandparents in North Fork, California. What it says is his dad didn't want him. His dad didn't want him there. After a while, his dad just said no. Kemper was living with his grandparents on their farm. Before going to North Fork, he had already begun learning about firearms, but his grandparents took away the rifle after he killed several birds and other small animals. There's one of the McDonald triad. On August 27, 1964, Kemper turned his building rage on his grandparents. The 15-year-old shot his grandmother in the kitchen after an argument, and his grandfather returned home. Kemper went outside and shot him by his car and then hid the body. Afterwards, he called his mother and she told him to call the police. He called the police. Of course, he went to jail. And the California Youth Authority. I want to look that up. I think Charles Manson was in. There's some place that Eileen Warnes and Charles Manson both were in. It's whenever they started accepting women, and that was just, they never met or anything, but we'll check that out in a minute. Hey Matthew, how you doing? I'm glad you're here. But then he started his little killing spree. Okay, let's go to Wikipedia. He was born, like I said, December 18th, 1948. He was an American serial killer, convicted of killing 7 women and 1 girl between May 1973 and 1972 and 1973. Years earlier, he had killed his grandparents at the age of 15. Um, Most of his murders included necrophilia, decapitation, and dismemberment. He would kill women at a certain point when he lived with his mother and start taking the bodies back there. And when she went to bed, he'd put them in the bathtub and dismember them and get rid of them and stuff. He was one that liked to keep the heads around for a little while, if you know what I mean. He did sexual things with it. He was very interested in heads. I don't know later on you'll see with his mother, he's very interested in heads and just I don't know. He was found sane and guilty at his trial in 1973, is what it says. Kemper requested the death penalty for his crimes. Capital punishment was suspended in California at the time, and instead he received 8 concurrent life sentences. I have wrote him. I'm going to write him again. He's in a hospital, and see if the California Medical Facility in Vacville, I think is how you say that. Probably wrong, but see if I can get an interview with him. I will fly out there and get an interview with him and see. I'm wrote him just a simple letter the first time, and I think that maybe I should put in what I'm doing, my dissertation and all that, what I'm doing it on, and that I also have a high IQ, kind of want to challenge his mental stability and challenge his intellect. So I don't know how I should go about it. Black Widow, Matthew, if you have any input, please put it in the chat and I'll check it in a minute. He had dark fantasies as harboring and had morbid imagination. In his youth, Kemper performed rites of the cutting off the doll's hands and cutting off their heads. On one occasion, his eldest sister, Susan Kemper, which he had like 3 siblings. I forget how many boys and girls it was, but there's 3. He said something other about his teacher that he liked her, and she said, "Well, why don't you kiss her?" And like children playing around and stuff. He said, "If I kiss her, then I'd have to kill her first." His first murders was the grandparents, and he had delusions. He had hallucinations, and no evidence of bizarre thinking. No expression of any delusions or hallucinations were found later on. Um, it's kind of like you're crazy, but you're not insane, so we need to put you somewhere. You know, you're insane, but you're not crazy. And so we got to put you into this facility to try to treat you and make you better so that we can bring you back to prison. I don't think he's like in his 70s or 80s. I don't think that he's ever going to go back to prison. Um, you never know. Someone might kill him there. I don't know. Jeffrey Dahmer got killed, but that was a different situation. Um, I didn't find a diagnosis. I would say antisocial behavior and borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia. That would be my diagnosis, but I would have to do the hair test on him. Everything is HARE if you want to look it up. Um, there's a lot of tests that would have to be done to diagnose this man. And I don't think that he's been diagnosed later. I think that he's in a place where they're happy for him to be there and nobody's dying, so that's what they want. Okay, now we're going to look at Eric Rudolph. This is going to be short and sweet because Eric Rudolph was a bomber. Eric Robert Rudolph, born September 19, 1966, also known as the Olympic Park Bomber, is American domestic terrorist convicted of a series of bombings across the southern United States between 1996 and 1998, which killed 2 people and injured over 100, including the Centennial Olympic Park bombing at the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta. He stated his motive was opposition to the ideals of global socialism and to abortion on demand. Um, he also blew up the abortion clinics. Remember, this is the one I said that he went to North Carolina. It says Rudolph was born in Marriott Island, Florida in 1966. After his father, Robert, died in 1981, he moved with his mother and siblings, Natasha, um, Nantahala, Macon County in western North Carolina. Nantahala Gorge. Oh my God. Ooh, let me tell you, I love it. I love it. I thought Boise had a good little like floating area thing down here. You don't want to get on Nantahala Gorge, you might die. Rudolph attended ninth grade at Nantahala School, but dropped out after that year and worked as a carpenter with his older brother Daniel. When Rudolph was 18, he spent time with his mother, Christian mother, at a Christian Identity compound in Missouri, as known as the Church of Israel. After Rudolph received his GED, he enlisted in the United States Army, undergoing basic training at Fort Benning in Georgia. Been there. He was discharged in January 1989 due to marijuana use. Been there. While serving with the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. In 1988, the year began with his discharge. Rudolph had attended the Air Assault School at Fort Campbell. He attended. He attained the rank of E4 specialist. E4 Mafia, baby. It says Rudolph joined several white supremacist groups in the years before he perpetrated the bombings. At 29, he done the bombing at the Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta. This was July 27, 1996. 1996 Summer Olympics. He made two anonymous calls 911 warning about the bomb before it detonated. That's something to look at. Like he was trying to prevent it. And then Rudolph confessed to three other bombings of abortion clinics in Atlanta, suburb of Sandy Springs, on January 16, 1996. Other Side Lounge of Atlanta, a lesbian bar, on February 21st, 1997. He injured five people. Another abortion clinic in Birmingham, Alabama, on January 29th, 1998, killing Birmingham police officer Robert Sanderson, who was off duty but working security in uniform, and critically injured nurse Emily Lyons. Rudolph's bombs contained nails which acted as shrapnel. He became a fugitive. I just want to get to the part. He was on America's 10 Most Wanted. He was up in the Nantahala National Forest near Cherokee in Graham County in North Carolina by getting acorns and salamanders, pilfering vegetables from gardens, stealing grains from a grain silo, and raiding dumpsters near Murphy, North Carolina. Just so you know, I was born in Bryson City, it's Cherokee County, so I know exactly where all these places are. Um, Rudolph was arrested in Murphy, North Carolina on May 31st, 2003 by a rookie police officer, Jeffrey Scott Postel of the Murphy Police Department, while Rudolph was looking through a dumpster behind a Save-A-Lot store. Didn't know they had one. At about 4 o'clock a.m., Postel, on a routine patrol, had initial suspect of burglary in progress. Um, he was unarmed. He didn't resist arrest, and he was clean shaven. He had a trim mustache. He had his hair dyed black, and he went to jail. He released a statement. Motives. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, the next person we're going to look at is Charles Manson. I am going to share the screen because I have to go pee. Thought I could hold it, but I can't. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, now we have Charles Manson. I'll make it bigger. Don't want that. Okay, I can't make it bigger. I probably can. I just don't know how to do it. Okay, there we go. We're gonna go with that. Charles Manson Maddox was born November 12th, 1934. November 2019, November 19, 2017 is when he died. He was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, died November 19th, like we said. Yay, yay, yay. He was a cult leader whose followers carried out notorious murders in the 1960s. Um, this crimes inspired the best-selling book Helter Skelter, 1974. You can also see the Tate murders. Manson was born to a 16-year-old girl. Okay, there's one thing. Not saying anything about having a baby young. I had a child at 17 and turned 18 the next month, um, or 2 months later. But just the fact that she was 16 in these days is generally an issue. I don't know if it was still you should have a baby. You shouldn't have a baby out of wedlock. But this was the case in most of the days back then. Um, After his mother was in prison, he didn't know his dad. After his mother was in prison for armed robbery, okay, there we go. Red flags going up everywhere. He lived with an aunt and uncle in West Virginia. Beginning at the age of 9, he spent most of his time in juvenile reformatories or in prison for crimes that included petty larceny, armed robbery, burglary, and auto theft. Following his release from prison in 1967, Manson moved to San Francisco, where he was attracted to a small but devoted group of followers among the city's bohemian youth culture. In 1968, he became the leader of the family, a communal religious cult dedicated to studying and implementing his eccentric religious teachings, which were drawn from his scientific fiction as well as the occult of fringes on psychology. He knew a lot about psychology. I still don't know a third of what I need to know. He preached about the apocalyptic race war that would devastate the United States and leave his family in a position of dominant power. He was talking about the race war between blacks and whites, and that the whites were going to overtake everybody, and it would be whites and all this crap. Manson's holdover, his followers were graphically illustrated in 1969 when the family carried out several murders on Manson's orders. The most famous victim was Sharon Tate, Roman Polanski's wife. He was a film director, and she was killed in Los Angeles. She was home alone with three guests. Um, the ensuing trial of Manson and his followers in 1970 attracted national attention. In 1971, Manson was sentenced to death but following the abolig- abolig- abolishation, 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 whatever, capital punishment in California in 1972. His sentence was commuted to life in prison. He became eligible for parole in 1978, but he was denied then as well in numerous subsequent hearings. Um, they was never letting Charles Manson out. He never actually committed a crime as Sharon Tate, um, but it tells more about Sharon Tate than it does anything. But it surprises me the childhood that these people have to grow up with. Uh, I see. Yeah, Sharon Tate was pregnant. They cut her stomach so much that I think that the baby did come out. Um, I'm not sure if it. I'm sure it came out the belly, but she said, "Please don't kill me because I'm pregnant and I have a baby. Um, come back and kill me after I have the baby, but please don't mess with my baby." And they stabbed her in the stomach a bunch of times. They cut her open, and so the baby probably came out that way. It could have come out vaginally, but I'd say it probably came out the stomach. But I just I don't understand cults. I don't get it. I don't understand how a person can have such hold over so many people. That's what gets me. Um, you look at this. Let's just get into it. Presidential election. They've got one side and you got this side, and they both have all these followers. It don't matter what they say, they have all these followers, and they just believe everything they say, and they're like, okay, this person's going to do this person's going to do that. I will look it up and I will leave it on my community page, but they already know who the president's going to be months prior to that. There's this organization that they have, and they go in and they go ahead and vote for the president. And so I'm wearing a necklace, and I want it to be seen because I never wear a necklace on my fat neck. But that's what it said. I'll look it up and I'll see what the sources are and everything. So uh, they are. I'm telling you, you do not know how much I researched on this. I've got other pages here talking about. I looked and looked and looked for diagnosis on serial killers. I even specified Charles Manson. I even specified this one. And let me see what it says about Charles Manson. Antisocial personality disorder. I mean, let's just look at it real quick. I wanted to look at Youth Authority because I swear that's where Eileen Warness wants to go to. I might skip over a few and jump to her because I really am interested in her. What was I looking up? Because I got my DSM, but I just don't have it. Let's see symptoms: physical aggression, hostility, violence towards others. Okay, before I was medicated, that's me. That's still me. Reckless or impulsive behavior, that's me. Breaking the law, disregarding the rules of social norms. Well, if you look at my Facebook, you can see I don't go along with the social norms, but I do obey the law. Um, I have a high regard for our law enforcement agencies. Feeling angry, more powerful, or better than others. Will not comment on that. Using wit, flattery, and charm to manipulate, lie, deceive others for personal gain and enjoyment. Yeah, I don't do that. I'm very straightforward, honest. Um, I'm very straightforward. You can ask people. I don't beat around the bush. Symptoms and causes. Here, let me share this. I apologize. Antisocial antisocial personality disorder, sometimes called psychopathy. Oh, there we go. Is a mental disorder. Wait, great. I'm gonna be a freaking psychopath. A mental condition. I need to get my records from the VA. Is a mental health condition in which A person consistently shows no regard for right or wrong and ignores the rights and feelings of others. Yeah, I'm not one where I worry I worry about the feelings of others, but at the same time, I'm not going to tiptoe around. If I offend someone, I offend someone. Of course, I have people that I don't say things or don't do anything, to offend them at all. Um, the Black Widow, me and her's been friends for what, 2 years now, and she's never offended me. And she's very straight, very straight, very straightforward. And I hope she feels that I'm very straightforward with her and I don't lie to her. And the same goes with Beans. And, like school, I'm very straightforward there. I don't mess around. Um, if I have a team project, we might joke around or something like that, but not anything to offend people. But on Facebook, yeah, I'm offending people. Symptoms of antisocial personality disorder include repeatedly ignoring the right and wrong, telling lies to take advantage of others, not being sensitive. This could be anybody. This is what gets me. This could be any damn body. This is a lot of people. And it's just so broad. Why not break it down into this person might kill someone? They're a psychopath. I don't understand why we can't not generalize it. So I don't need a Black Widow. I'm telling you right now. There's very few people that I like on YouTube. There's very few people that I like on Facebook. Um, and when I say very few, I mean like three, four. It's not very many at all. Um, but I try to be respectful of people. Um, I'll say this, I got a free membership tonight, so I paid it forward and I bought 5 memberships for somebody. And, I'm one that believes in helping people out and doing stuff, but I'm not going to tiptoe around. What do you call that where you're a good person, but you don't, uh, you don't worry about offending people. You don't worry about trying to hide your personality. If you're gruff, you're gruff. And that's what mom used to call it. She'd say, Tinker, you're gruff. And I'm like, no, I'm just honest. I got no reason to piss pot around. I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. If you ask me a question about something, I'm going to ask you, do you want me to tell you the truth or do you want me to lie to you? And then we go from there. Let me look it up again. We got Psychology Today. That's a decent source. Because, I mean, that could be anybody. Antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, describes an integrated pattern of behavior in which the individuals consistently disregard and violate the rights of others around them. Individuals with antisocial personality disorder may have violent, risky, and impulsive, and often little regard for the wants and needs of others. This disorder is best understood with the context of broader category of personality disorders. That's what I'm thinking. There's more personality disorders that lead into it. This could only be one. Like, say I could have antisocial personality disorder, but there's also disorders that go with it. That's leading up to it. There's got to be this. I'm going to check that out. That's going to be my next video. Um, the symptoms of anti-personality disorder can vary in severity. Um, The consequences can include imprisonment, drug use, alcoholism. The most outrageous, harmful, and dangerous behavior patterns are often referred to as psychopath and um, sociopathic. I got my DSM. I'll look that up tomorrow because that ain't going to lie to me. It'll tell me the criteria, it'll tell me everything. I know. I'll check into it tomorrow with my DSM, and I'll if I have to, I'll put it on Word document, and then I'll submit the Word document onto the community page. But Charles Manson, he actually never killed nobody. Um, he died in prison from dying. He was as old. He never got killed. And then we says here he was released from prison and began pimping for a living and was caught forging U.S. Treasury checks in the amount of $43. He was arrested, given a 10-year suspended sentence and probation. Okay, now let's talk about David Berkowitz, son of Sam. I think that we're going to go ahead and stop it here. No, he wasn't even there. He um, he actually could have been something. That's what's crazy, is that I forget the record guy's name, but it was like a member of Alabama or something, and he was going to put it and make a record with him, and he got mad because the guy didn't do it, or he got mad because the guy didn't do it quick enough, and he went into this man's house and was sitting there when he came home. Now you're talking about somebody famous, and he could have been, the way he looks and the way he is, he could have been so much. And again, he took the wrong path. I don't get it. I mean, I get, like, I'll just be honest, I'm waiting on school money, and it's killing me because usually by now it's changed over and I've seen something move. Well, it's not moved yet. So impatient me is like, what's going on? What's going on? Let me check it every 5 minutes. What's going on? And the same when I order stuff. I want to know where it's at, when it's showing up, what's going on. I'll probably be up most of the night waiting on my book to show up so I can put it to the side and read it tomorrow. It's 500 pages. He's like, buy this book. It's actually Dr. Hickey's book, but he's like, buy this book and it'll help you narrow down your topic. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. I want to show you what things. We've been going to the Cracker Barrel a whole lot, and Bings generally will think of me, and buy me things, or I'll ask him, hey, I want new wedding rings, something like that. And the other day he came up to me and he had a book, and he said, I found something that I know that you want. And he bought it for me. So now I've got two books that I've got to read, and I want to read the Edgar Allan Poe, but I also want to read Dr. Hickey because this man is intelligent. I recommend that you go and Google his name and look up some of his videos. Again, there's a line between genius and insanity, and that's what I'll say. But let's look at Eileen Warnes real quick. I really wanted to look at her. We're going to look at Jack the Ripper, H.H. Holmes, Richard Ramirez, Son of Sam, Israel Keys. We'll look at him next time. The BTK killer. I don't know why I can't say that. And Dennis Rader, which I think was the Green River Killer. Eileen Warnes was born to the parents who separated before birth. Um, Let me say before I start that of all the serial killers I've looked at, this is one, I feel sorry for Edmund Kemper, but I don't feel sorry for his crimes, and he's where he belongs. To me, I think that he probably belongs in prison, not in the hospital. I think he got off easy for that. But have Eileen Warnes down as borderline personality disorder. But this woman went through a lot. I see why she turned out the way she did. And honestly, I'm surprised it wasn't worse than what it was. But Eileen Warnes was born to parents who separated before birth, and her father later spent time in a mental hospital, red flag, for child molestation. I don't know why he's in a mental hospital for child molestation. But when Warnos was 4 years old, she and her brother went to live with her grandparents. In her early teens, she spent time at home for unwed mothers and then dropped out of school and turned to prostitution. She was raped, they say, by her grandfather, but everybody's saying too that it was the grandfather's friend, um, and they made her get rid of the baby. But and she was 14 at the time. Warnos claims that she was a victim of extensive sexual abuse at the hands of her grandfather and possibly others. During her trial, analysts discovered Warnos had several personality disorders. In case you didn't hear me in the back, several personality disorders, including borderline personality, antisocial personality, due to her childhood trauma and abandonment. This is the one I think I'm going to do my dissertation on. We're going to do this and then we'll be done, and then we'll start try to get some of these come down um, with the rest of them next time, because Jack the Ripper, we don't know who it is. The Zodiac Killer, we don't know who it is. Um, though the Zodiac Killer, they say that it was Gary somebody Post, um, but they don't know. The man died, so they don't know, and they don't know. But Eileen Carol Warnos was born Pittman, February 29, 1956, and she died October 9, 2002, as American serial killer. In 1989, 1990, while engaging in street prostitution along highways in Florida, she shot dead and robbed seven of her male clients. Warnes claimed that she was the clients were trying to rape her and attempted to rape her, and that the homicides of the men that was committed was self-defense. Warnos was sentenced to death for six murders. She was executed on October 9, 2002 by lethal injection after spending more than 10 years on the Florida's death row. Uh, I can look it up, but just to kind of generalize it, she was talking about the spaceship coming back and she was going to it and all this stuff. You should really watch videos on her because she changes her story so much, and you can see her personality change so much. I mean, it's dramatic. There's this one guy that goes in and he gets all these interviews with her, and he has to hide the camera sometimes and all this stuff, but just her personality like dramatically changes. Warnos was born, what we said, in 1990 in Rochester, Michigan. Her mother, Diane Warnos, was born 1939, was 14 years old when she married Eileen's father, who was 18, Leo Pittman, on June 3rd, 1954. On March 14th, 1955, Diane gave birth to Eileen's older brother, Keith. After less than 2 years of marriage, and 2 months before Eileen was born, Diane filed for divorce. She gave Eileen, at the age of 16, up to the grandparents, I do believe. Let me get a slumber drink. Warnos never met her father. In 1967, Leah Pittman was sentenced to life imprisonment for kidnapping and raping a 7-year-old girl. Um, Instead of reading all this, she would exchange. Here's some of it. She would exchange sexual favors for cigarettes, drugs, and food. Her grandparents made her go live out in the woods. She would live out in the woods in the cold. Now you got to think Michigan in the cold in the winter. How she stayed warm. She said she'd sleep in old cars. All this stuff. exchanged sexual activities with her brother. Warnos was said that her alcoholic grandfather had sexually assaulted her and beaten her when she was a child. Before beating her, he would force her to strip out of her clothes. In 1970, at the age of 14, she became pregnant. Red flag. After being raped by a family friend. Again, they say it was the grandfather, and then they say it's the family friend. It's according to what source you look at. And we'll never know. She gave birth at home to a boy at a home for unwed mothers on March 23rd, 1971, and the child was placed up for adoption. A few months after her son was born, she dropped out of school, and at the same time, her grandmother died of liver failure. When Warnos was 15, her grandfather threw her out of the house, and she began living in the woods near her old home and supported herself through prostitution. Her criminal activity, I'm not going to go through all the men that she killed, um, but she killed 7 of them, probably more than that. And then she got a girlfriend that in the long run actually testified against her and got her in trouble, but Eileen took the rap for it, and she never said any different. Warnos was incarcerated at the Florida State of Corrections Broward County Institution. Death row for women and was transferred to Florida State Prison for execution. Her appeal with the United States Court was denied in 1996. A petition in 2001 to the Florida State Court. She stated her intention to dismiss her legal counsel and terminate all pending appeals. I killed men, she wrote, and robbed them and as cold as ice, and would do it again too. Uh, she admitted to do it. Then she said that it was self-defense. Then she said she didn't do it. There was so much going on, and Warnos was executed by lethal injection. It took place on October 9th, 2002. She declined her last meal, which could have been anything under $20, and opted for a cup of coffee instead. Her last words were, "Yes, I would just like to say I'm selling with The Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie. Big mothership and all. I'll be back. I'll be back." She died at 9:47 Eastern Standard Time. She was the second woman in Florida and the 10th in the United States to be executed. 1976 U.S. Supreme Court decision restoring capital punishment. She was cremated and scattered beneath a tree in her native Michigan childhood home. So that's some on her. We're going to go ahead and end this. Thank you so much, Black Widow, for staying up with me. I appreciate it. Um, I got something I want to send you. But I'm going to go ahead and stop there, and then we'll finish up the rest ones on another day. It'll probably be another week, or I might try to get to them tomorrow since I've got my homework done for this week. Um, and then also, I will read that book and see what's going on. If you want, I can read y'all some of it. Very educated man, Dr. Hickey. And I appreciate it again. Thank you, Black Widow. You have a great night too. And I will talk to all of y'all later. Bye.